You know, what we have to offer is of value to people. If you had something, if you had a gift or a secret or, something really valuable that you know can change someone's life, can improve their life, can make them feel better or perform better or, get on better with their family or what have you, basically kind of lift their lives, why would you keep it from them? You need a way of helping them to understand that you have this thing. It's for you. I want to give it to you. And so this is what copy, to my mind, is all about. It's all about the intention. It's all in the intention to serve and to help people.
Hey everybody, this is Chris from honestypill.com. You are listening to episode 20 of the Honesty Pill podcast. This season on the show, I'll be talking to people who are breaking the status quo, ditching outdated traditions, and building a better future for themselves and the people they work with. I'll be connecting you with musicians, sound healers, coaches, hip-hop artists, actors, and people who not only inspire and educate every single day, but who are experts at talking about what they do so you can get inspired in your own work. Thank you so much for being here. And if you're brand new, I want to encourage you to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any of the great content we have lined up for you and that you can apply to your teaching, performing, or online business right now. My guest today is the amazing Jen Walker, who is an actor and, as I like to call her, copy consultant to the stars. Once you get to meet her, you will realize her wordsmithing skills are eclipsed only by her energy and sense of humor. So before we jump in, let me ask you a question. Do you consider yourself a good writer? And I don't mean of novels or screenplays, but of the type of writing we need to use every day in our communication with the people who are interested in what we do for a living. I'm talking about emails, social media posts, or even copy you would find on a website. Because if you're like most musicians, by the way, myself included, you are better at playing your instrument than you are at talking about it, and that includes when it comes time to send out those emails to get people to show up and participate and engage in the things that you are doing. So I really wanted to get Jen on this podcast because, and forgive me for saying this, but most musicians are terrible writers, specifically when it comes to talking about what we do. And it's really important, especially in the hybrid environment that we're all living in online. Like all of the guests on my podcast, Jen is going to send you out there with some actionable advice on how you can evolve the way you create and structure your written communication and messaging. One of my favorite things that Jen talks about is how she uses her experience as an actor to step into character when helping her clients write emails and social media posts. We're also going to talk about these insane artificial intelligence apps out there that take data that you input and literally create emails for you that you can send out to your audience. Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Are these robots going to slowly take over the world? We'll hear Jen's thoughts on that, as well as her opinion on the use of the Oxford comma. Spoiler alert, don't do it. There is so much in this interview that I'm going to stop talking right now and let you get to it. Let's listen to my conversation with Jen Walker. I can't believe this is really happening right here on the Honesty Pill podcast. Somehow, some way, I have managed to conjure up out of her tiny bottle the copy genie herself. Welcome to the show, Jen Walker.
Hey, here I am in a puff of smoke.
Exactly.
Hello.
So, the phrase to let the genie out of the bottle is widely accepted to mean to allow something to happen that then cannot be stopped. And I thought, what a perfect explanation for everything I know about you, the powerhouse train of energy that you are. So I'm so happy to get to talk to you today.
Oh, what a wonderful thing to say. I love that. Yes, I do feel like it's too late for me to backtrack or get back in that bottle, I'm afraid. Yeah, so I'm here to stay.
Can we start with some hard-hitting questions here? So I'm looking at your website. Let's talk about the candy apple red Vespa and the All-Star Converse sneakers. Are you like an adrenaline junkie or a basketball? What's going on with that?
There's it's a bit mixed there, isn't it? Kind of, I need to sort out my branding here. I do. I have a lovely little Vespa. I would not say I am an adrenaline junkie. I am part of a family of adrenaline junkies, however. My husband and all my sons are into motorcycles, and we literally have in our garage I don't know, something like 10 motorcycles, dirt bikes, road bikes, adventure bikes, all sorts, plus my Vespa. And my Vespa was a little treat. A couple of years ago, I turned 50. And so that was, a little bit of a treat to myself.
I bought an electric guitar when I turned 50. So I think we're all on the same page here. You have to buy something bright red when that birthday comes. Now you're in Colorado, so you probably don't get year-round use out of all of the recreational vehicles, or do you?
No, that is the trouble. Yeah, we spend several months of the year, well, not with snow on the ground all the time, but certainly there's ice and there's snow, and it's really no fun riding a motorcycle in those conditions. So yeah, the poor little Vespa stays kind of buttoned up, so to speak, in those months. But in the summer around here, it's so fun just zipping about.
Jen, let me set a little background for our listeners here. You're an actor, you're a copywriter, you're a bright, shiny light. But before all of that, you went to school in Cambridge. And that listener, that's the real Cambridge, not the one in Boston. You probably tell that's not a Harvard accent there. And you got a BA in natural sciences, which is basically like biology. What was the plan? Did you want to become a biologist?
What is the plan? That's the ultimate question, isn't it? Yeah, it's interesting actually, because yes, you're right. I am an actor. And I remember very clearly in Cambridge being asked to do a little interview for a show that I was in there, and it was kind of a little bio sort of section. And they asked me kind of, what do you want to do when you grow up? What's the plan? And I literally said, I hadn't planned this, but it just came out. I want to be David Attenborough. Ambitious indeed. Clearly that wasn't going to happen. But actually, it's interesting, because if you listen to David Attenborough's biography, he started out at Cambridge and started out doing in educational publishing, just as I did. So maybe I was on the right trajectory, but somewhere I fell off. I wanted to be. I was always fascinated in sciences anyway, and biology I did at university, though I didn't really kind of specialize in that at high school, because in the UK, in high school, towards the end, you actually kind of specialize a lot more than you do here in the US. So at kind of A level, we call it, those are kind of the exams you take at the end of high school. I was doing chemistry, maths, physics, and art. So kind of weird, but not biology, in fact. So then when I went to university, I thought, let's try something new, basically. It's not that new. It definitely kind of draws on those other disciplines. But I just did it basically because I was interested, because I was fascinated in it. I wasn't really thinking much further than that. And it was literally kind of in my final year. I was, my boyfriend at the time, husband now, he had a holiday job, a vacation job, working in an educational publisher's. And so when I was kind of like flailing about thinking, okay, what do I do next? I'm about to graduate. I need a plan, kind of thing. He said, well, why not work for an educational publisher? Do biology for a publisher. And so I thought, okay. And I think I wrote to something like 18 or 19 publishers that just in and around London at the time. And in those days that, they'd actually have physical kind of advertisements in the newspaper. And so it was very exciting kind of to write down the numbers and write out a letter and post it off. And you actually got a response in those days, even if it was a no. It was fantastic. So I did get a no for most of them, except for two, who basically said, I have no idea why you've applied for these editorial jobs. You are not qualified, but come and see us anyway. And then I went to the Seychelles for 3 months. This was a kind of biology thing. Hamish, my husband, and I, he wasn't my husband then, we went to stay on an island in the Seychelles called Arid, which was is a nature reserve. It was owned by the RSPB, which is the Royal Society for the Preservation of Birds. Actually originally owned by the Cadbury chocolate family, believe it or not, but they kind of gave it to the RSPB. And so we stayed there for 3 months. So I wasn't actually able to kind of take up these little sort of not job offers, but kind of invitations to come and see us anyway, until 3 months later, by the time I got back. At which point, one of them had kind of dropped off the map. And the other one said, here's a job. Somebody left. Here's your job. So I started as a desk editor at Hodder and Stoughton Educational Publishers. Well, Hodder and Stoughton were a massive publisher, but I was in the educational department. And yeah, that's where I kind of got my spurs, so to speak, in the words game.
We talk about education on this show a lot because it's sort of core to creative people and musicians, and it's all sort of wrapped together. But what a novel idea that you have over there in the UK to actually go to school with some sort of intention. I think most US students just go into school just to accumulate debt and then work at coffee bars. That's how my experience was. So I love that that worked out. So where did acting come into your life? Were you one of those kids who was constantly putting on a show in the dining room before dinner, or how did that happen?
Kind of. I'm not sure my family really shared my passion, so I didn't have much of an audience here at home most of the time. But no, I remember I was 12 years old, and I was it wasn't actually to do with it. It wasn't part of my school, in fact, because my school was very academic and not into the arts really much at all, sadly. So it was outside of that. It was the Kingston Vale Operatic and Dramatic Society, as it happened. And I joined the youth section there. And we started doing all kinds of shows, musicals mainly. I was in Greece. I was Sandy in Greece when I was 12. Honestly, that's just child abuse, frankly. Looking back, that was not okay. But that was awfully good fun. And did loads of shows with those guys. And then when I went to university at Cambridge, of course, that is, although they don't have a drama curriculum there, or at least they didn't, they may do now. Nevertheless, it's all about, there's so many arty people on both sides of the spectrum, so to speak. And when I say spectrum, I mean the kind of arts sciences spectrum. So people were involved in the arts, even if they studied science like I did. So I had all sorts of opportunities there. I did many shows there, and took many of them to Edinburgh as well, to the Edinburgh Festival. That was huge fun. That's just such a laugh. And then in my final year there, I joined the Footlights, the Cambridge Footlights, of Monty Python fame and so on. So I was part of that gang, and again did a show in Edinburgh with them as well. And there was this makes me laugh so much. I was actually invited to be a double act with Sue Perkins. I don't know if you know Sue Perkins. If you've ever watched the Bake Off, British Bake Off.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, not the most recent series, but a few series back, Sue Perkins and her sidekick, Mel, were the kind of comedy element. And so, then Sue's had an amazing career in TV and all sorts of acting and comedy and so on. And I could have been her sidekick, and I said no. I said no because I thought I have to go and get a proper job in publishing.
Okay, that's worth talking about. But you would, oh my God, you'd be so brilliant on British baking or anything, basically. So your family didn't really support the idea of you becoming an actor then?
No, not really, no. And although now, since I've been in the US, in fact, and I've worked in Denver for various different theatre companies, I have been paid for it. All the acting that I was doing in the UK up until that point, I wasn't really paid at all. I mean, there was a stipend here and there, but it wasn't for money, so to speak. I would have loved to have been able to do that. That would have been a total dream. But no, it was kind of, the usual sort of pressures, I suppose, as I say, to get a proper job and, do the right thing and so on. So I did. And that... But then, as I say, later I was able to kind of come back to it, and it's always been for the love of it in any case.
But that right there is the moment of where imposter syndrome and starving artist syndrome starts for creative people, musicians, actors, yes. Whatever. Where, the way you said, I actually got paid for it, or of course I wasn't getting paid for it. It's so funny how we just assume that because it's something pleasurable and you might want to spend your life doing it, that of course you couldn't actually make any money doing it. And then you have to unpack all that later when you decide to communicate about what it is you do. All that baggage comes out in your copywriting, which we're going to talk about in a second.
Yes.
Got to ask you before we leave the acting bit, what's the best character you've ever played? Do you have a favorite?
Oh, yes, I do actually. And it was relatively recently. I played Dottie in Noises Off here in Colorado. And oh my God, that's a crazy show. I mean, it's kind of really retro. I think it was originally opened in the West End in, 1970 something or other. So it's all a little bit dated and a little bit just on the edge of being not okay anymore, but hugely fun. I mean, real slapstick stuff, people falling downstairs and all the rest of it. So that was an amazing play.
Did you ever think of coming out to LA and doing Upright Citizens or go to Chicago or anything for that sort of thing? Or has it never crossed your radar?
Well, I would have loved to. I would have loved to. Once again, I'm afraid it has been a question of family and, staying put, really, because my husband works here in Denver and, my kids are here at school and so on. So it wasn't really an option for me to travel in that sense, or at least, I didn't let it be. I probably could have, made it happen, but I didn't. Because the other thing is, I love copywriting. I've discovered this other thing that I adore doing. I love the people I work with, and it kind of ticks lots of boxes. Oh, sorry, checks lots of boxes. That's what we have to say. In terms of, all that, the artistic satisfaction sort of boxes, so to speak, as well. And that was really, that got about 4 years ago or so, when I transitioned into copywriting, and that started to take off. Honestly, that was a great focus for me. And I although I did continue acting, I have continued acting, not lately, obviously, because of COVID. Nevertheless, it was the copywriting business that was taking most of my focus, to be honest.
All right. So you started out as a biologist, then you moved on to acting, and you're playing in Greece. How did you end up becoming a copywriter? Where did that enter the picture?
Well, yes, the kind of connecting piece, I suppose, is that we touched on, is the educational publishing bit. Because yes, I did get a job with Hodder and Stoughton, and I stayed there for a few years. I then moved to another company. Then I went freelance when we moved out of London, back in the UK. And so I've been working for myself basically since 1995. And I was working as an editor, as a copy editor for educational school books, textbooks, basically. And, surprise, surprise, they were mostly biology books. And I got myself into, without knowing it, without really understanding what this was, I got myself into a nice little niche, so that I was really one of the few people working in biology textbooks at that level. So I was actually, I was working for almost all of the UK publishers on the same level of books. It was a little bit kind of incestuous. It was kind of strange. But it meant that, the whole period that I was freelance and doing that, I really didn't struggle for work at all. I had all the work I could deal with. I had 4 kids, so I was kind of in and out of work, but I did always come back to it and continued that momentum. The trouble was, though, I had no concept whatsoever of what I was doing as a business. I was freelance, but basically I was an outsourced employee. I had no concept that I had any control over who I worked for, or what kind of jobs that I wanted to do, or crucially, how much I could charge. I just, the job came in, it's going to cost, it's going to pay this amount. Oh, okay. Do the work, send it out, send the invoice, in comes the money. And it was all very, I was an order taker, basically, and I had no sense of control. And eventually, as I say, also because of the repetition, the kind of constant feeling of deja vu of the same kinds of textbooks coming back from different publishers, but the same stuff literally coming over my desk kind of 5 years after I've edited a textbook, it comes back to me to be kind of revamped for a new audience, so to speak. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, something has to change. And it was around that time I was looking for something new. And I actually was on a plane back from the UK to the US. I was living in the US by then. I was on my own because I'd actually just gone to visit my mum. My mum wasn't very well. And so it wasn't kind of like a big family trip. It was just me. I went to visit her kind of really briefly. And then because I was on my own on the plane, basically, I was chatting to the person next to me. I'm not really normally very chatty on a plane, but I was, he was talking to me. So, and we got into conversation about, what do you do? And he had a business helping startups and so on. I said, oh, I'm a copy editor. And basically he kind of understood, well, he heard copywriter. I think he didn't really know what a copy editor was. And not many people do. But he kind of knew what a copywriter was because he worked with startups wanting copy for their websites and so on. And so he was kind of like, oh, right. Okay, I might have some work for you. And I thought, oh, no, he's got the wrong end of the stick. But, it's a conversation on a plane. Not going to hassle about it. But we did, we exchanged email addresses. And the next day he emails me and says, I've got this job for you. So I'm there thinking, oh, heck, I better find out what on earth this thing is that I don't do. Because if this is, this could be embarrassing otherwise. And basically that is what triggered my foray, my kind of research and investigations into what copywriting was. And I found that it was amazing, that it sounds very similar, doesn't it, to copy editor, but it's so different in terms of, in terms of everything, really, in terms of who you're writing for and to and with, and it's way more creative, way more fun, and actually, as it turns out, way more lucrative as well. So it started then. I think that was the beginning of 2017, that plane journey. And as it turned out, just to kind of complete that loop, the job he gave me wasn't really actually copywriting even. It was kind of like revamping a thing, a slide deck basically, but I did it for him and he was happy and so on. But the point was, it was that trigger that got me on the path to finding out about this amazing new career, which since then has really just gone from strength to strength for me. It's fantastic.
All right, time for a true confession here. So the first time I was introduced to someone whose friend was supposed to be this super creative copywriter, I thought that was like getting a copyright, like trademark stuff.
Oh, yes.
And, all the legal filings and schematics and such. And I thought, what an epically boring job. Like, yes. And is that really creative? You're getting trademarks and copyrights. So luckily I kept that to myself. One skill I've developed in my life is learning to keep my mouth shut when I don't know what's going on. And it served me pretty well. Can we circle back to that feeling of when you're talking about being a freelancer, writing and doing things where you had no control, you had no purchase over who you're working with or where or in what capacity? Everything that you said is so applicable to musicians as well, who also are coming from that mindset that we talked about before of what I have isn't worth much. I'm not worth much. I'm lucky to be doing this at all. And what it ends up, I think it can perpetuate an entire life cycle of being on the sort of short end of the stick and just not really fulfilling the potential and certainly the satisfaction and certainly the financial income that you could be making if you just had a different mindset around it. It's great that you had the courage to jump feet first into something you didn't even know what it was and then actually make that into a career, which you've been doing for a long time now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting because it was literally 20 something years that I was working as a copy editor. And exactly what you're saying, Chris, I literally was sitting there, especially because I'd kind of, come in and out, with moving house, moving continents, having 4 children and so on. I literally counted myself lucky to be able to get any work at all, and it was awesome in that sense that it was so flexible and I could kind of pick it up and put it down in that way. But the result was, as you say, I had no sense of my own worth or value. This is still a process for me to be getting out of exactly that mindset and into the idea that actually I do have something that is valuable, that is worth money and worth people's time, and I am actually pretty darn good at it. And not only that, but I can help other people. I can help you to be better. I can help you to get your genius out there, to spread your word, just to get more customers for yourself. I can help other people grow their lives. And that's so powerful to me now, because literally, yes, it was great thought to be kind of helping, youngsters in school to learn biology or what have you. But basically, I don't know that I was having a whole lot of impact really. But now I honestly feel that I am and that I can. And that is my dream going forward, to help more creative people. And I love working with creative people and artists and musicians in particular, because of that potential that there is there to help their audiences to grow, whether they be other professional musicians or people in it purely for the love of it. The learning and the development of a skill like that, of an artistic endeavor or an artistic talent like that is so powerful, because it helps other people to see things in different ways, to understand themselves and their relationships and their connections with other people in different ways, in ways that sometimes just language itself, although writing itself is an art, of course, but sometimes there are language barriers, there are cultural barriers that other forms of art, such as music, such as painting, such as sculpture, can help to break down and to help people to make connections that otherwise would be more difficult. And this, I think, is so powerful and so important, not just for growth of individuals, to help individuals kind of improve their lives, but to help them grow as a family, as a community, and as a society. Honestly, I know this is sounds like hyperbole, but this seems to me like, this is our work, people. This is what we need to do. So I'm so thrilled now to feel like I can actually take a part in that and make an impact in that work.
You work with a lot of teachers, and you work with a lot of musicians, and you work with a lot of musicians who are teachers. What do you like about working with musicians, and how are musicians and actors similar, or how are they different?
Well, yeah, what I love about working with musicians in particular is, first of all, that you guys always have so many kind of, well, to use a musical metaphor, so many strings to your bow. In as much as many of you are performing musicians, but also teachers, maybe coaches, maybe business coaches as well, and you have all these different kind of aspects to the way that you show up in the world and what you can bring to the world. In terms of copy, of helping people with their messaging in that respect, that can be a little bit tricky, because oftentimes musicians want to be speaking to all of these people that they can serve, whether that be somebody who might hire them for a performance or a gig, or whether that's somebody who might be a parent of a child who wants a lesson, or some other kind of segment of their kind of overall audience. And when we're writing copy, when we're kind of creating the messaging to connect, and I love that word that you were using earlier, Chris, and it's just like, it's kind of like my key core value, I think, connection. When we want to try to connect with people to show them how we can help them, we need each individual kind of segment of our audience, each individual basically in that audience, to feel like we're talking specifically to them and we understand their specific needs and wants, and that we can help them in a specific way that is going to be powerful in their own lives. And that will be different, of course, when you're talking to somebody who may hire you for a gig, as opposed to speaking to a parent of a child. So this is something that is always a challenge, and that part of that challenge is that challenge is part of why I love working with musicians. But the other reason, with all artists, as I say, is the reason that you guys just inspire me so much, is that what you're doing basically in putting your artistic endeavors out into the world is so powerful in ways that people don't value, but should value. Because the thing is, I think even from school, I was reflecting on this early on, in fact. And in fact, I mentioned that at high school, I specialized in my final years in maths, chemistry, and physics. So the sciencey, the important things, and then art. I was kind of obliged basically to give up art. Because it was perceived that was less important. That was frivolous. That was an indulgence. That was just a bit of fun, doodling on the side. And I should focus on the academic stuff, which I'm still bitter about, as you can tell. But this is my point, that art is not valued from that very kind of fundamental stage, but it is so valuable. It is so important because it creates, as we've already been saying, it creates the kind of connections in our world that are so important. And it is the lack of connection between people, between individuals within a family, let alone within societies, and across countries and across cultures and across the world. It is that lack of connection which is the root of so much of what's kind of going wrong in the world, so to speak. So this, again, I know it sounds like I'm over-egging the pudding here, but this is one reason why I love to work with artists, because this stuff is important. We need to be helping people to get more of this type of expression, and helping people to see things from a different perspective, and have a different idea about something that they never would have done if they hadn't been exposed to music or paintings or whatever the art form is, or stage plays even. So I do feel that this is important work. And as musicians in particular, whether a musician is a teacher working with teaching young kids, or whether they're a performing artist, they are changing lives. So by me helping them to connect with the right people, I can help them to change more lives, basically. And so there's a kind of like an explosion effect, so to speak, a kind of a knock-on effect.
And we'll be right back. I want to give a huge thanks to the sponsor of the Honesty Pill podcast, Yamaha Corporation of America. I've been playing Yamaha equipment for decades in my own practice room, on stage with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and touring all over the world, and Yamaha has been an absolute game changer. Something I love about Yamaha is the way they pursue excellence in all of their work and at all levels. They are as dedicated to doing quality work for beginning students as they are for marquee artists. I admire their commitment to continuous improvement and creating a community that includes all of the musicians they serve. Make every note count, play Yamaha. Okay, let's get back to the show. Why do you think that messaging is so important and learning how to spin it in different mediums like written word? Look, let's face it. If you are a musician, you are in sales because you have to convince people why they should consume your music or your art or whatever. And if you're in sales, you need to communicate the value or the why that's important. And the way we do that is through copywriting. That's the first stop, whether it's a sign or an email or a website. So let me ask you this. What's the one thing most people tend to get wrong when they start working on their copy for their businesses or their careers?
This is a great question. And I actually think you've asked me this one thing. I'd like to suggest that there are two things that I see that I come up against a lot. Especially with musicians, but this does apply, across the board really. But I think it's especially the case for musicians. The first one is that writing, so to speak, the way we are taught to write at school and through college and so on, is how we kind of imagine proper writing to be. And that's how. If I'm writing something more than just a kind of shopping list or a note to my husband, then that's the kind of writing that I should be putting out there. It's professional, it's slick, it's it's polished and so on. It's structured, it has a beginning, a middle, and end, and all the rest of it. But that kind of academic writing, that kind of essay writing, so to speak, although it does have, although the structure is important. Whatever you're writing, for sure. The kind of structure that we're talking about in academic writing and the kind of purpose of academic writing is very different to when we're talking about writing copy, which to my mind, copy should always be way more, well, it is a conversation. It is a conversation. It's literally a conversation between you and the one person who's reading it in that moment. Even if it's an email that you're sending out to your whole list, even if it's a sales page that that hundreds or thousands of people may look at, in the moment of reading, in the moment that it's perceived by your reader, it is just you and them. And it's a very intimate and kind of close conversation really between the two of you. Yes, it should have structure, of course. And I speak often about how important it is to be able to kind of lead your reader through the copy. So from one part to the next, a kind of this irresistible kind of smooth and frictionless thread that runs through the whole thing, taking them from the very beginning where you want them to kind of recognize that they're in the right place. Oh gosh, yes, this is something for me. This person has something that I could really use. It's going to improve my life, and they're leaning in, and then they're reading on to the next bit thinking, oh yes, tell me more, and then that bit hooks them a little bit more, and now we're thinking, okay, oh gosh, yes, this person totally gets me, understands my situation, knows what I need, I'm reading on, and so on all the way down the page until you get to the part where you're asking them to take some sort of action, whether that be to kind of make a purchase or sign up for an email list, whatever that may be. So that kind of structure is very important, but the purpose of it is to kind of get that engagement and reaction. Whereas the purpose of academic writing is really just kind of prove what you know. And it's not a question of making that connection. And in fact, with copy, one of the dangers is when you're writing with that kind of academic hat on, so to speak, is to give too much information. When you're writing copy, all you need to say is just enough to get the person to understand that they're in the right place. And yes, this is for me, as opposed to everything kind of all at once, which is just going to kind of overwhelm people and they're going to fall off the bus. So that is one thing. The other thing I think that I come up against a lot, I say come up against like it's kind of some terrible big wall, but that people struggle with, I think, is the idea of selling. As you say, we are in the business of selling, but because of the way that selling is perceived or can be perceived, generally marketing and so on, as being sleazy, as being kind of manipulative. Even the words we use in I really I feel like I want to rewrite a dictionary for marketing to get away from all these words, because they do sound kind of manipulative. Things like a hook, and sleight of mouth techniques and so on. I mean, these are all very effective ways of kind of helping people to get to the place where they can help themselves. But the way we talk about it and the way that society talks about selling and marketing makes it sound very manipulative and kind of sleazy, as I say, and salesy. But to my mind, what we are doing is service, because as we've just been discussing, what we have to offer is of value to people. If you had a gift or a secret or something really valuable that can change someone's life, can improve their life, can make them feel better or perform better, or get on better with their family or what have you, basically kind of lift their lives, why would you keep it from them? You need a way of helping them to understand that you have this thing. It's for you. I want to give it to you. And so this is what copy, to my mind, is all about. It's all about the intention. It's all in the intention to serve and to help people. Now, the other side of that, of course, is that, well, people say, yes, but, if you really loved people, if you really wanted to help people, you'd give it away for free. But of course, how long would you be able to give it away for free before you fell over and we're not able to eat or pay rent and so on? You cannot do that. And there's two reasons why we need to charge the true value for what we're putting out there and what we're offering to the world. One is that if you don't, you will not be able to kind of keep giving. You cannot keep giving from an empty cup. And secondly, seriously, there is an expression, I don't know who started it, but that the transformation starts in the transaction. So that if people do not invest in some way, whether it's time or money, usually money, but if they don't have skin in the game, so to speak, if they don't have that kind of commitment, if they haven't a way of showing their commitment to the process, they won't basically do the work that they need to do to get the change and the improvement in their lives. And so you're not helping them. So, we do need to charge. So this is a little bit of a bee in my bonnet, as you can probably tell. The idea that marketing for good, yay, that's, it is perceived as being an evil. But to my mind, it's like any tool, it's neutral. Marketing can be used for surreptitious and manipulative means. Of course it can. And of course it has. So that's very short-sighted, because once you screw someone over once, they're not going to come back for more. But like any tool, like a hammer, you can use a hammer to build a house. You can use a hammer to smash a house down. It's how you use it. It's all in the intention, to my mind.
I want to say one other thing you mentioned about the first time a web designer said, yep, we need a CTA button here. I was like, right, what's that? And she said, CTA, call to action. What do you want me to do after I've read this copy? And that is sort of the crux of the whole thing, which is having the intention of what do you want me to feel, think, or say, or do next after I've read this messaging to move forward in this process? Maybe nothing. Maybe the call to action is go and journal about this for 10 minutes and take a deep breath. That might be the end of it. Or it could be hop on a call and let's dig into this, or sign up for my course, or download my PDF, or whatever. But having the intention of everything you do, whether it's a Facebook Live or a social media post or an email sent, what do you want that person to do? How do you want them to react at the end of it? It's so important to start with the end in mind. Absolutely. in that way. You mentioned about the one person reading the email. Are you suggesting, or is it a good idea for those of us who are sitting down writing an email to specifically write as though we're writing to a specific person rather than a faceless mass of people who might be reading it?
I would say yes, absolutely. I would always encourage you to write as if you're writing to one person, and therefore literally to use you rather than you all, or or some of you, or something like that. So to write as if you are writing to a friend, as if you are writing to a friend and you have this amazing thing to share, and it's just, oh my God, the secret I have to tell you, and then this happened, and and this is really important for you. I really think this would be great because to make it that kind of conversational and intimate in that way. Now, I know it can be tricky because, as we touched upon before, oftentimes we have more than kind of one ideal customer. We have more than one person that we potentially want to reach out to. And there are different ways of kind of dealing with that conundrum. It may be that you can literally kind of segment your email, so to speak, to go to different parts of your audience. So in the example we used earlier, if you had some emails, an email that you wanted to go out to people who might potentially hire you to play, then that could be one segment, and you can kind of tag them within your email management system and so on. And then another segment is all to do with people who might want to hire you to teach them to play. And literally write two separate emails to those two separate segments, depending on what it is that you're promoting or wanting to communicate in that moment. But even within one segment, for instance, I remember I was writing for Nathan Cole. I'm sure many of your audience know Nathan, gorgeous Nathan. And we were promoting his Violympics program. And there were kind of different elements within the audience for that program. Some of them were professional orchestra players. Some of them were students who were, just about to graduate college potentially, and were looking towards those, those auditions on the horizon. And some were people who, were not professional, but loved, were passionate about their instrument, wanted to improve their playing. Maybe they'd been parents for a while or injured for a while, and they'd been out of it. They were coming back to it. So this program was ideal for all of those people. And so it is difficult to then write to the one person when there are these disparate kind of interests and levels of experience involved. So the way we got around it, the way we approached it in that case, on the sales page, for example, which again needs really to be written as if one person is reading it at any one moment, but is written to one person. We always had kind of like, maybe it was like a kind of bullet list, like maybe you're a professional orchestra player, da 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 da, or perhaps you're da 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 da, or could be you're da da da, and therefore, whichever one of those kind of categories people felt resonated most with them, they would feel seen, if you see what I mean. They would feel like, okay, this is for me. And I think I use this kind of example quite a lot, so you may have heard it elsewhere, but I often relate that kind of phenomenon, so to speak, of picking out the things that are relevant to us and resonate with us, and kind of ignoring the rest without letting it disturb us, as being like reading your horoscope. When you read your horoscope and it says something like, all sorts of nonsense about, tall, dark strangers and, big money windfalls coming, but then it says, and there's a holiday or vacation on the horizon for you, and you think, oh, how did they know I'm going on vacation next week? So you pick out what is true and is resonant for you, and see yourself in what's being said, without thinking, oh well, it can't be for me because these other things don't apply. So that is one way of kind of getting about it, getting around that issue. And so the way I talk about it is that any particular element of copy needs to speak to one particular person. So in that case, in the kind of like the three alternative sort of personas, so to speak, each one of those was just speaking to one particular kind of category of person, type of person. So but it's always a tricky one. But the more personal you can make it, the more conversational it feels, and therefore the more engaged your reader will feel. They'll feel, oh, this is for me, and this person has something that I'm interested in. So
I wonder if another way to look at it too, from what you're saying, is you have overlapping circles of different types of people, and some of the things will not apply. Maybe you're not auditioning for an orchestra. Maybe you're just a comeback player, or you're a hobbyist, or a student. But there's going to be some elements of your bat signal, your superpower, that will relate to all those people. And that's where you want to focus the core of your messaging, and then the other things sort of attached to it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I should have said exactly that, Chris, because the element, the kind of 3 bullet list thing was one tiny part of the email at the beginning, just to kind of help people kind of figure out whether this was for them. But the bulk of that sales page, of course, was all about what people had in common, what all of our audience members had in common, and therefore what would appeal to them in this program. So yeah, absolutely spot on.
We are talking at a pretty high level here, and there are probably some people listening that there's some words flying around that they may not understand. What is the difference between the emails that I have in my Google, contacts, my friends and people I've worked with and students and contractors and things. What is the difference between that and having what you said was a list? What is the difference in those things?
Oh, very good question. Yes. Thank you for picking me up on that. No, absolutely. So an email list is basically a collection of email addresses, and sometimes you have a bit more contact information. But basically, yeah, it's your list of email addresses from people who have expressed some kind of interest in you and your business. And the way that they express that interest is potentially by, for example, signing up for your newsletter or downloading some kind of PDF lead magnet, some kind of free value that you got offered on your website, and people can opt in, so to speak. They put their details in the little box, the little kind of form on your website, or maybe it's, in your Instagram, where have you, and basically they are giving you their email address in return for something. It's usually in return for something. Sometimes people just want to kind of be in your circle and be your friend. And so they'll just give you your email address for nothing, their email address for nothing. But usually it's in return for some kind of free value. And then as you build this list of people, the advantage of that is that that they're interested in you, that they may be potentially, leads and clients in the future, because they actively volunteered their information. They signed up to be in your gang, so to speak, as opposed to your list of contacts who are, a kind of disparate group of people that you may have worked with before, or maybe family, or maybe friends, but they haven't expressed any desire to actually, buy your stuff potentially, or be in your circle in that way.
And fun fact that we should probably highlight is that word that you just said, opt in. It is actually illegal and definitely unethical to just sort of add people from a list that you got from somewhere somehow. And besides, that's not really effective anyway, because the moment I get an email from somewhere I didn't opt in, I'm going to unsubscribe anyway. So It's important to actually put out some sort of messaging that attracts the person that has what you need into your list, so that you can then serve them in a big and relevant way. So it's probably an interesting thing to notice. You mentioned Nathan Cole earlier. I get a lot of emails in my inbox from teachers and musicians and entrepreneurs who I know are really busy people. They have kids and jobs and things to do. And it blows my mind how someone like a Nathan Cole has time to sit down and write all of these really well thought out, convincing, compelling, thoughtful, lovely emails that sound like he's talking right to me when he's got something coming up, like his programs. And I know some of these people personally, so I know that the emails I'm reading are coming straight from them, right?
Maybe. Well, they certainly are coming straight from them. It may be that they have had some help from someone such as myself in actually creating and writing those emails. But the important thing to understand is that when you work with a copywriter such as myself, we're not just making stuff up. We're not just kind of like saying, oh no, write this, write that, because that is absolutely pointless. There is no point in just putting out something that shows no kind of sense of understanding or connection with the audience. So I spend, when I'm working with a client, a huge amount of time and effort upfront before I write anything for them at all, in understanding them and their aspirations and what fires them up and what they want to achieve in the world. My client, this is, and understanding their ideal client and who it is we're actually working with, who we're talking to. As well as, of course, all the information that I can gather about the product itself that we may be talking about and what kind of transformation that is likely to bring to people. So when I write for other people, I am using all of that information. And actually, certainly in my particular case, my acting experience also comes in here, because what I find I'm able to do is actually step into character, so to speak. So I am writing as my client. I am literally kind of literally. I am in their head. I am in their body, their soul. I am writing as them. Of course, nothing goes out without their approval and their permission. It's all kind of, I create the copy, it goes back to them, they approve it, maybe we tweak and so on. But I am writing as them, just as when I step on stage, I'm in character as whatever role I'm playing. So, and that is something that has been truly genuine. I didn't really kind of spot it to start with, but it is something that feeds into my copywriting hugely and makes it that much more enjoyable as well. Yeah.
You can't talk about copywriting without talking about storytelling. It's a good segue. What I've been thinking about a lot, like you, like everyone else who has a Netflix account, we've been streaming content like crazy during the pandemic. And it got me thinking about how the speed, the tempo, the pace of consumption of media has changed again this past year or so.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, it's a really, really good point. And as we mentioned earlier, one thing that we do have to keep really kind of close tabs on, and I am constantly picking myself up for this, is writing too much, as you say, writing more than our reader needs, basically. So to try to kind of really hone it down, keep it as lean as possible in terms of just delivering the juicy facts and information that they need to keep reading, basically, until they get to the point where they're kind of bought in, where they're emotionally kind of yes, and then logically they've rationalized that emotional decision and they're yes, and they can't help but kind of click that button. And it does take a lot of discipline and a lot of structure. We mentioned structure earlier. We do have to chunk it up. We do have to have little techniques like cross headings and using bold and making the page look accessible without being overcomplicated. Sometimes pages can be over designed. I'm talking about sales pages now in particular, and that can actually cause an element of distraction, and I spoke earlier about the kind of this irresistible and silky smooth thread that we're trying to weave through the copy to get them from where they land to where we want them to make that yes decision, and constructing the copy to maintain that thread without any breaks, without any distractions, without any friction, to get people kind of like slipping off, or that's a mixed metaphor, isn't it? Anyway, that is what we're after. And yes, people will skim. I mean, there are very few people who will, read a whole whole sales page on the first go. However, if you can catch enough of their attention using things like headings and bold and kind of and little kind of speed bumps to help people who are skimming to just kind of catch their eye and catch that enough engagement to get them keep reading, then they know enough to know they're interested. Then next time they visit, or maybe the same visit, but they'll scroll up to the top again and then kind of read more about the detail, because they're thinking, okay, no, I'm getting this. This sounds like it could be for me. But it does take a lot of thought, and it is one of the biggest problems that people have in their writing, is that they write too much. And we also have to bear in mind, in terms of like thinking about the media, the different media that people are using to access our copy on tablets. Well, tablets are less common these days anyway, but certainly on mobiles, even a 2-line paragraph can look like a very big chunk in an email. And so although when you're writing it, you may think, oh, I can't, just use one sentence for a paragraph. And certainly when we're thinking with our academic caps on, in terms of the writing we were taught to do at school, that would have been really weird and not okay. But in terms of a sales page or an email even, yes, it is okay. I give you permission. Plus, you can start sentences with "and."
I want to see if I can share with our listeners like an actionable thing they can do, because I know this is going to happen to me this week. I know it. When you're sitting down to start, and you've got maybe you've got a masterclass coming up, or you want to open up your studio to more students, or whatever your thing is, like, where do we start? Like, what's a good tip to say, okay, take a breath and start here? Where would you guide us to begin that journey of getting that information from up here out there in a way that checks the boxes of everything that you've been talking about on this call?
Right. Good one. Well, first of all, going back to the idea of intention, when you have something to put out there, when you have something that you want to tell people about, some piece of value, whether it's paid value or a freebie, what have you, you want to tell them about it. You want to get this message across. The key thing that I always start with is basically, why do they need this? How is this going to change their life? What is the promise in inverted commas? What is the transformation or the change, the benefit that this thing can have in their life? And then I like to go a little bit deeper and sort of think, okay, so for example, it may be, let's think of an example. I don't know. So maybe you're talking about a program that will help you, but basically just improve your playing in some way. Okay, so now we want to think about, why do they want to improve their playing? And we go a little bit deeper in terms of what this transformation will actually mean in their lives, and thinking about your specific audience as well. Because obviously, if your audience are, concert pianists, that's a different benefit that they're going to experience, a different, deeper benefit than if you're teaching 10-year-olds, for example. But to think about that. And then once you've got the kind of, you understand the kind of deeper emotional benefit that this thing is going to have for them, that is kind of what you want to say. That is what, because I always think it's so important to think more about the what you want to say before you then think about the how to say it. So many people sort of plow in with trying to kind of sound fancy or sound knowledgeable or what have you, without actually kind of really having a fingertips hold on what it is that they want to say. What is the message here? What is the actual message? So start with the message and then think about how to say it. And then in terms of, and this may be a kind of separate tip, I suppose, but in terms of actually constructing any piece of copy, always start where they are. Meet them where they are. Meet your audience where they are right now. Kind of join the conversation in their head almost. What is it that they're feeling right now that your solution can help them with? Start there. Start by empathizing with, I know how it feels to feel this way. And then out of that, eventually, I mean, there are various stages, but out of that, then you can kind of come to the point where your solution is the obvious sort of next step for them to take to get out of this sticky place that they're in the first place. But if you can meet them where they are, I'd say that was the very first thing to do.
I love it. And somewhere in there, you said too, the understanding the why of what you're doing and what is the problem that you solve for that person.
Yes, absolutely.
Highlighting that stuff is great. Oh, this is such good stuff. I wasn't planning on asking you about this, but I just got an ad in my social feed for AI-generated blogs and emails, like created by a computer algorithm. What is going on with that? Do you have any thought? Are we being taken over by the Borg here? What's happening? Is this a real thing, or is this going to be just like so awful as I assume it might be that it'll go away?
Well, I haven't investigated this because obviously I don't want to. But no, I have heard about not just kind of in terms of blog posts, but all kinds of little bots and things like this that automatically generate copy in various contexts. And I think in terms of, some of those bot things, that kind of helper bots that you get at the bottom of your screen, sometimes I guess that could be vaguely helpful to just enough to direct you to a place where then a real human can kind of help you with your actual problem. But in terms of generating a blog post and stuff, I don't know. It feels like a very, very bad idea to me. I mean, maybe, who knows, sometime in the future, artificial intelligence may be kind of human enough, empathetic enough to really understand what it is that we humans want in our lives and so on. But until that point, I think it's going to take another human to understand how to create the connection that we need between ourselves and our ideal customers to make that, make that relationship happen.
In that distant day off in the future, when orchestras and copywriters have been replaced by robots, people will listen to this podcast and laugh, say, God, they just didn't see that coming, did they? I want to share a little quote from your website that I just love so much. It says, just the right words to precisely the right person at exactly the right time will always cast the spell you need. It's just a matter of finding those words. What words would you find for someone, Jen Walker, who is sitting on the fence, like ready to share their superpowers with the world, but needs a little push?
The magic words I would say to inspire them or to help them, take that first step is your audience awaits. The world needs you. The world needs your genius, and do not undersell yourself. You are valuable. Get that stuff out there.
Brilliant. All right. I have some sort of silly rapid fire questions here.
Uh-oh.
No, these are going to be easy, but I'm just curious what your responses are. So don't even think about it. Just blurt out your answer. Okay. Ready?
Oh, okay. I'll try.
Typewriter or laptop?
Oh, laptop.
Bullet points or numbered lists?
Bullets.
True or false? Actors make the best copywriters.
True.
Yeah, I think we've established that by now. Oxford comma, yes or no?
No.
Okay, I hit a nerve with that one. Good. Kindle e-reader or paperback book?
Oh, paperback.
Okay, I'm with you on that. Although being the gadget guy, I do love having all those books in my pocket, but I don't like not knowing where I am. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
What is your number one grammatical pet peeve?
Well, it's really interesting because having spent 20-something years as an editor, this was my job to have pet peeves, grammatical kind of peeves, as you say. But actually, I never did. I mean, I know the rules, I know when and how to apply them, but I've never been like the grammar police. And I don't really get that upset, although I made a bit of a I was a bit over emphatic with the Oxford comma thing. The only reason actually that I say that is in terms of copywriting in particular, the less punctuation you can get away with, the better, because every comma and every period and every colon and stuff slows people down in a sense. And when you're talking about that irresistible thread again, getting people to keep reading, all those little subconscious hiccups and slight friction points are gonna potentially, hopefully not enough, but they may add up to enough to stop people from continuing to read. So that's why I don't like the Oxford comma in copy. But I don't get too het up about anything really. I think it's whatever works and whatever is clear in the context.
Well, I want to just plug your website here, jenwalker.com. I love the copy on this website because you are literally walking that walk. You're using very conversational phrases here, the words yup and ah and all this, like it feels so real. And it also is very authentic to your personality. If you want a masterclass on making authentic, I don't want to use the word casual, but that seems like such a negative connotation, but approachable, connective copy, go to Jen's website and just read every word on here because it's a masterclass. Jen, I got to let you go, but I have to just say, I personally thank you so much for the work you've done on my copy. It has helped me connect so many people into my coaching program and all the things that I've been doing. And the other cool thing is, and listen, this is probably a great takeaway from anybody listening, which is get yourself a coach in any of this area because they are going to see things you cannot see. And I remember when I submitted my first landing page for Jen to look at, she instantly said, well, what about this, that, and that? And it was, so obvious after she pointed it out, and I totally didn't see it. And I would have pressed publish to the entire world. So thank you so much for that. Where can people find out more about you? What programs you have coming up? Let us know how we can work with you.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. I do have, I launched a beta of a copy coaching program for artists, entrepreneurs last November, and it ran for 6 months, and it was awesome, and I loved it. And I fully intend, and I'm planning at the moment to have a reiteration of that, to relaunch that. But there were certain aspects of it that I really wanted to kind of improve, particularly in terms of actually, because I'm all about learning. I love learning, but it seems to me that there's often a missing piece, which is the kind of the integration and the actual kind of getting the learning kind of sort of embedded and embodied, so to speak. So I want to improve my coaching program to help people actually not just kind of learn the facts and figures of copy and so on, but actually make this kind of just a regular, normal, kind of everyday another talent that they have in their bow, so to speak, another string to their bow that they can call on at any time. So that will be relaunched probably in the new year. But if anyone's interested in finding out more about that, it would be wonderful to connect with you. I have a Facebook group called the Copy Cash Connection. So it'd be great, if people want to kind of dive in there. That is a great place to find out more about it. And if you do get in the Facebook group, I will invite you to join my email list, where I also email people with all sorts of yummy information and top tips and so on. So those are the main places, Facebook, and my website as well. The other place is Instagram. I am on Instagram at CopyGenie. And I'll see you there.
Jen, thank you. We've got to get together in Colorado next time I'm out there visiting, and it's not a pandemic, please. But we'll get together for sure.
That would be amazing. Yes, please. And next time I'm in LA, I'll come see you guys.
Absolutely. That'd be great. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye. I don't know about you, but I am now inspired to get my next email blast written and get my messaging tight. I'm going to work on that, Jen. Thank you so much. I hope you're inspired to communicate about whatever it is that you're putting out in the world as well. Okay, that is it for me today. This has been the Honesty Pill Podcast, episode 20. You can find out more at honestypill.com. Hey, are you subscribed to this podcast? Are you subscribed to the Honesty Pill mailing list? If you're not, you are missing out. So I will challenge you, check this item off your to-do list today by subscribing right now, wherever you get your podcasts and at honestypill.com. And I also want to take a moment to thank those who have reviewed this podcast. It means the world to us and helps other people just like you connect with everything that is going on over here at Honesty Pill Mission Control. Okay, I'm out of here. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much for listening.